it's going to muck things up," he'd said grimly, wiping his nose on the sleeve of a shabby jacket. "How can you spend time with them and still spend time with me? You can't. You're not going to be able to do any bilberry picking, and you're not going to be able to watch the vore pups take to the water. And seeing as how it's August, it'll be the last litter this year." "Perhaps Miss Thea and Miss Olivia will want to bilberry pick and see the vore pups as well," she'd said. Hal had laughed so much he'd had to hug his tummy. "Not in a million years, daft idiot." Suddenly, he'd straightened up. Pushing a tumble of coal-black curls away from his forehead, he'd said fiercely, "And if your playmates don't call them Miss Thea and Miss Olivia, not unless they call you Miss Caroline." And at this unlikelihood, he'd begun laughing again, this time so hard that Carrie had thought he was going to be sick. "Hello, Carrie." Blanche Fenton's voice was low-pitched and full of reassurance as, still holding her granny's hand, Carrie faced her in the intimidating surroundings of a room stuffed with gilt-framed paintings, silver-framed photographs, and small tables crammed with ornaments. "Thea and Olivia are very much looking forward to you spending time with them." Despite her nervousness, Carrie was glad to discover that Lady Fenton was just as nice and approachable within the walls of her home as she had always seemed to be outside it. She had a cloud of dark hair that she wore caught in a loose knot at the top of her head, and wherever she went, she carried the faint scent of roses with her. Though she seemed old to Carrie, her granny had told her that Lady Fenton was only 29, which, she had said, wasn't old at all. "And Gilbert is only 30, she had added, forgetting her rule always to refer to her former charge as either Lord Fenton or his lordship. "They were scarcely old enough to be out in society when they married, and neither of them has any side whatsoever." Carrie had been mystified by the word side, until her granny had explained it meant that Lord and Lady Fenton weren't pretentious. "Which means they behave in exactly the same way to absolutely everyone, no matter who they are," she had added when Carrie had continued to look bewildered. "Please don't worry about anything, Nanny Thornton," Blanche Fenton said now. "I'm sure this arrangement is going to work beautifully." She took hold of Carrie's free hand. "Jim Crosby will collect Carrie every morning in the pony trap and bring her home in it every tea time." Carrie felt a flash of alarm. As well as being the general handyman at Gorton Hall, Jim Crosby was Hal's uncle, and Carrie didn't think he'd take kindly to ferrying her back and forth every day. He'd think she was getting ideas far above her station in life, as would her friends in the village when they got to hear about it. Foreseeing all kinds of difficulties ahead, she said a reluctant goodbye to her granny and allowed herself to be led from the room. "Thea and Olivia are in the playroom," Blanche said encouragingly. "Violet doesn't visit it much, as she's still in the nursery and spends most of her time with Nanny Eskdale." They were walking down a royal blue carpeted corridor lined with marble busts set on fluted pedestals. Through an open doorway, Carrie saw a maid busily dusting. The room looked to be a smaller version of the room they had just left, and she wondered how many other such rooms there were, and how the Fentons decided which room it was they wanted to spend time in. Another maid, a smart black dress skimming neat buttoned boots and wearing a snowy lace apron and cap, walked down the corridor towards them. She stood to one side as they passed, giving Blanche a respectful little bob and shooting Carrie a look of curiosity. Together, Blanche and Carrie turned the corner and began climbing a balustraded staircase carpeted in the same dazzling blue. At the top, on a spacious landing, it divided into two. "This is the main staircase of the house," Blanche said. "I'm taking you this way so that we can look at a few family portraits together." The portrait looking down on them as they approached the landing was of a robust-looking gentleman with a shock of silver hair. "This portrait is of Samuel George Fenton, Lord Fenton's grandfather," Blanche said as they came to a halt in front of it. "He was a Yorkshire wool baron."